Let's start with like father stuff, like your kids and your family, and then later we'll talk about some of the songs because
Love
I
it.
wanna
Let's do
I wanna
it.
make sure we do that. So, first one is just tell us about your kids, like how many you have, what their
Oh,
ages are,
man.
any personality traits you feel like sharing. I'll let you run with
Yeah.
that, but this one's all about your kids.
All right. Our oldest just turned 14. Then 12. So those are our boys, Aiden and Liam. And then our girls, Willa is 9. Amory is 5. Many of you know my little girl, Amory. She was born 5 years ago with some health challenges. She's doing so good. She's doing so good. Graduated from preschool this year, which was just like this momentous occasion for us as parents. Just you kind of we did it. You just have this thought like we did it. Like, and man, I wish we would have known that this moment was in our future. You know what I mean? But again, so we're just a year and a half seizure free. She's graduated from preschool, and we're kind of getting into this season of like all the kids will be in school full time after this summer, and we don't know what we're gonna do. And so it's amazing. Yeah.
So I wasn't planning on asking this, but you've had three kids and then one
Yeah.
where you have significant challenges.
Right.
You've told some
Right.
of these stories, but did you feel like you had, did you feel like you knew what fatherhood was and then it took it to a different place,
Yeah.
going through a health struggle?
Yeah.
This is a whole thing for a lot of
Yeah.
people. What did that do in relation to fatherhood for you?
Yeah. You know what? I think you have this understanding of what being a present father is, a present husband. And then you go through something challenging like this. And I think we go through challenging things in varying degrees, whether it's through our job or our spousal relationship or whatever it is. And it just kind of opened my eyes to the needs around us. You know what I mean? Yes, it was challenging in our house and all this, but really, I think the kingdom, in our house grew to be like, hey, you are one of millions of stories just like this that you were once unaware of, and now your eyes have been opened. And so it's like, oh, okay. Like I know where I stand now on this planet. I'm like, this whole love your neighbor as yourself thing, it just exploded in my heart. And I'm like, we've just got to be so much, we got to operate differently. We got to be so much more for so many more kind of thing. And so you see the compassion that's grown in our kids' lives. It's just been so beautiful. And so I feel like this little girl has been a light, in our lives, leading us on like, hey, here's this family, here's, this friend in need. And so that's kind of been the main point. Yeah.
I love that. My husband and I have been through cancer and each of us had
Yeah.
it at different points. And
Yeah.
I love the way that you described it because it is something you think would turn you inward. You think it would
Yes.
be like, I need to be the most selfish during
Right.
this season because of survival mode.
Yeah.
But really, isn't it like a kingdom thing, the way that God works in the first place to take that opposite where it becomes something that turns you the most outward? It's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
We are the needy ones and he is the giver. So if we try and fill our own need, it's like we take his place. And so we were at a point like you're completely helpless. There's nothing you can do to fix this. And so God, do what you do best. And he brought so many people into our lives to help meet the need. And so now that's our job. Now that we're in a good place, it feels like, okay, we get to just kind of mirror what the Holy Spirit desires to do in this life and just be the hands and feet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, next question is, can you tell us about your dad?
Yeah. My dad's amazing. We've had our ups and downs because, I was, once a very self-righteous kid, and hopefully I'm less of that. But, my dad grew up without a dad. My dad tells this story of not having a bike as a kid. And it just kind of breaks my heart. Like my dad had to endure this. And it just says so much about who he is now and the things that he fought for. My parents lived in the big city and then they moved us to a small town. And I feel like what they did is they said no to all the distraction that was coming at them and said, we're saying yes to what God wants to do in our little family, and um, we're just going to create something beautiful. And I know my parents gave up on some of their bigger dreams just to make that happen. But now, you look at the next generation. We are the first, generation, me and my siblings, um, that now get to have an outlook on life that our parents stuck it out, and they fought for their marriage and they fought for their kids and they made that a priority. I'm like, now that's everything to us. And I love singing songs and I love doing music, but it's so secondary to the nucleus we have right in front of us. And so my dad and my mom, they really imparted that to me because they didn't have that. And I asked my dad recently, like, how did you know how to do this and where to go? You had no example, right? You had no one to show you the way. And it's like it's only by God's grace that they found their way, and now here we are. So yeah.
I can't help but think, and I wanted to talk music later, but I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
help but think of your song in this moment. You're telling that story about your dad and the move that his family made, and you
Yeah.
and your so how does that play into knowing his story and the move that your family made for your career and as you
Yeah.
tell it?
To me, it's just, again, just such an amazing, real, practical example of God's goodness and his grace and his, like, and we can lean in those unknown seasons, and we're going to risk and we're going to take a step, and we're not going to overthink it because it could be the wrong step, but good thing we have a loving God that directs our steps. You know what I mean? I think you look at culture today and it's like, God, what is my calling? What am I meant to do? And God's like, you're not meant to do anything. You're meant to be. And when you understand who you are, you'll then start to act, you know? And so I think, again, my parents instilled in us so much who we were, and we were never defined by what we did. So me, growing up in a farming and trades community, you're either a farmer or you're going to work in construction, and I'm telling my parents that I want to do music. I'm like, they fully supported that because, again, they weren't wrapped up in that identity of what we did. You know, my mom was, every morning had her Bible in her journal, on the coffee table. I always had these deep, life-giving conversations with my dad. And he always referred to God as a loving heavenly father, that, like, ever since I was a child.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, that just stuck. And so you gain confidence as a kid, then as you're coming up to things, hurdles, challenges that you're gonna have to overcome. And it was just like we were confident in that. And again, if God can make a way for my parents and what they went through, this seems like a minor obstacle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Moving from Canada to the US, in this whole dream of music, it's like, uh, yeah. So it's just been an amazing ride.
Okay, so I'm curious. You say your dad always said loving heavenly father.
Yeah.
Have you noticed, is there anything yet that your kids are going to say that you always said? Now, whether it relates, it's, super spiritual, or whether
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like that
Yeah.
you always, a certain chore, what are the dad isms that your kids are picking up about you? Do you even know?
Yeah. There's one thing I say, and it's like, what's the most important thing? Because so often kids are like, Dad, I want this. Can we go for lunch here? Can we do this? Dad, I want an extra blanket at night. I want, this. And it's like, what's the most important thing? And it's people. Like, people that, like we already know in this family that God is at the center of everything. And we live in a very, 2D, 3D dimensional world, and it's like, to I try and convey to the kids that we do not force God into our world. We are trying to get into his, you know? And so people over things. Don't use people and value things. Value people and use things. And so that's kind of been the thing. And every time my wife sends them out to school, she says, "Have a good day and be a good friend." And that's it.
Oh, I love that. That's so
Yeah.
good. Okay. Here's this. The next thing is like a best or worst. So I'm going to ask you
Yeah.
questions, and maybe you'll have a best, or maybe you'll have a worst.
Okay.
And if it takes a second in between, this is totally fine. I'm going to start. Hopefully, this one is easy. The
Yeah.
best or worst gift from one of your kids,
From my kids to
from your
myself.
kids to you. Have they given you something that you think that was a special?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, there's never been a worse gift. Like, there's no bad gift from a child. Like, am I a monster? That's terrible. I mean, the best gifts they have given are, these art projects from school. You know what I mean? Because, and again, not to over spiritualize it, but I think our greatest worship, our greatest songs, the best that we can give God are that, hold on. This is literally on the top of the piano. I don't even know what this is. But this is, to God, this is our best worship song ever written. You know what I mean? This
Mm-hmm.
is like, I love Gratitude by Brandon Lake, but compared to an infinite God, it probably looks something like this. It's
I
terrible.
can roll with that analogy. I mean,
I'm
because
sorry, Brandon.
if like a machine made, if a factory made it, I don't know what that's supposed to be. If it's supposed to
Yeah.
be a donut making a funny face or
I
a,
don't know.
I have no idea. But
Yeah.
because it was crafted, with intention
Yes.
from a person.
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
God, I believe, embraces that. Again, loving Heavenly Father. I was like, I laughed my butt off, and equally is like, this is probably the best thing you've ever made because I can't understand it, and it's great. So, yeah,
I can't understand. I love that.
yeah.
But it has some personality. I gotta
Oh,
say,
it sure
the
does.
more I look at that,
It's
so which kid
special.
made that one?
This was, oh my goodness, this was Willa, I think so, our 9-year-old. I mean, look at the foot. Like, it's got a foot. On the bottom, it's got a tongue. It's got teeth in the back. It's got a tail. Look at that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is, but it's pretty impressive.
It is. I mean, the tongue is my favorite part.
Absolutely. It's eating a cookie or something, you know?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. And this is coming from a mom who knows there are many answers to a question like this. The best or worst activity you've learned to do with your kids. This might be like errands, it might be like camping.
Yeah.
It might, there are things where we learn as we do them. We thought it'd be fun and it turns out not, or the
Yeah,
other way
yeah.
around.
I mean, one thing that we do, and maybe we've talked about this, is like I invite the kids along. Like, oh, dad's going to Home Depot. Like I say to my wife Heather, like, hey, I'll take two of the kids. We can divide and conquer. Or I'm like, I'm mowing the grass, or I'm working in the back hedge, or I'm in the garage, and it's like just inviting them along with you. And even they're like, Dad, what am I doing? I'm like, you're just being, you're being here. And eventually we get into a good conversation, or we find something to do. And I think just again, presence is so key. Just being in the same proximity has just been like, it's so life-giving. I'm doing a run where I'm doing 3 shows, but we're going to take the van. So the band will be in the van, and I'm going to take Liam, my middle guy. He's 12, and I'm like, Liam, let's go. You know what I mean? You're just part of it. And he wants to go,
Mhm.
but there's also this hesitancy of like, I'm not going to get to play my Fortnite or whatever. And it's like, no, you're going to be. And I don't want me leaving to ever be a negative. So when you can come along for the journey. So I think when we do that as parents, like, oh, I've got to go do this, it's an adult thing. um, just invite your kids into it. They just want to be in your presence.
That'll preach too. I feel like
Yeah,
somewhere in there that was going deep. I love
yeah,
it.
totally. And
All
it's
right,
so practical. It's so simple. We don't need to complicate it. We don't, but it is so spiritual then all of a sudden. So, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. I'm going to be thinking about that one.
Yeah.
Next one is best or worst advice you can give a dad. Is there something that you have told people or has been told to you that you just think is like, yeah, on one of the extremes of dad
Hmm.
advice?
Dad advice. I mean, I say this a lot, but when you can get out of your, your flow as a parent, as a dad, when your kid interrupts you and you can give them your yes kind of thing. Like I'm such a focused thinker. And the thing is when you're home, that has to come second. It just does. Like you're not going to get these moments back with your kids. And so, right after this, my wife and our little girl are playing Lego. So I'm like, I know where I'm going. And I'm like, I've got to give them my yes. I've got to go up there and do that. But when they interrupt you, how quick can you get to yes? It's like, give me 5 minutes. It's like, do you really need 5 minutes? You're already interrupted. Your flow's broken. And I think it's like if we can surrender in our hearts, knowing that this work will get done just later. There's a moment here. There's a window that I need to take. So take those moments.
That's really good. That's good human advice. That's good.
Yeah,
That applies
yeah,
to everybody, especially I feel like in this just the way the world is today.
yeah.
If you can give the person your attention as quickly as possible,
Right. Because
that's so
your
good.
attention is on a thing right now, and you're saying the thing is more valuable than the person. Again, it's like back to people matter. They are, if we can give our life over to people, I think we're going to have a good conversation with Jesus when we enter the gates of heaven. Yeah. Or maybe it's a little better. We'll see.
Awesome. So, have the kids heard the new album yet?
Oh, yeah.
Do they
Yeah.
have any? Which songs are they, are you seeing them spark on?
The girls love it. They love music. The boys love music too, but they're less impressed with dad. You know what I mean? They're like they're going to be teenage. Like the oldest is 14, he's a teenager. The 12-year-old, he's quickly approaching being 13, and I know deep inside they know that this is really special. Like rarely anybody gets to really do this, and I'm like they do see that. So I feel like they're trying to play it off as cool. They're trying to play cool. But there are songs that I know that they're going to grow up and they're going to look back and I think we're going to have those conversations of like, Dad, I never said anything, but that really spoke to me. That would be my dream come true as a dad, that, these seeds of truth, just like they were planted in me when I was a kid, listening to Christian radio, my prayer is that they would seep into their hearts too, and eventually really stand on them. Yeah.
I think it's cool for your family, whether they think so or not. Again, they're kids,
Yeah.
I get this,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that they're kind of in some of these
Yeah.
songs, like they're part of your
They
story.
are
Your
these
story is
songs.
part.
That's right.
So, seeing themselves in the record I just think that's so cool. Let's talk about that song, Away for Us. Give us
Yeah.
that story.
Yeah. I mean, this song really is all about the journey of us moving from Canada to the US. The first verse starts talking about, it was easier when I did this on my own. And then, I got married, had 4 kids, and that was always the plan. Like I ever since I was a kid, I wanted to get married. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be a dad. And I think a lot of people would think that having a wife and kids would be a detriment to chasing a dream, right? And God just put me in an amazing position, working in construction, providing for my family, getting to play on the weekends, and eventually having kind of a song take off at U.S. Christian radio. And it made a way for us to move down here. And the real heartbeat of the song is a prayer my wife prayed. We left just an amazing community back home. 30 kids on the block. We had neighbors that stayed on the block because we had created such a great community. And then, we just felt called to move away, and it was really expanding, our home, not leaving what we had built. And my wife's prayer was, God, the community you have for us, the neighbors, the kids, the schools, and the healthcare system, which totally freaked us out. And you know what? It was, I think maybe a year ago, we were having a birthday party at our house, and I looked around, and there were like 6, families. Our neighbors were over with all their kids, and it was this moment of like, God, you did it again. You made a way, and you answered that prayer. And so that has just been our story of just God, continually showing us the way through, and we're just trying to stay faithful. And it doesn't mean we always get it right. Like we're sharing the one story that was, we got it right. It's been a lot of trial and error and hurdling, going through challenges, but this has just been miraculous for us. Yeah.
That's awesome. Uh, Working in construction and
Yeah.
the song My Foundation.
Yeah.
I would love to hear more about that one too. So tell us
Yeah.
that story.
So I started working in construction when I was 13, over the summers installing flooring with my dad. And then I, got into doing some electrical, then HVAC and installing stucco for 5 years. It was probably the hardest job I've ever done. And then for about, just under 15 years, I worked for myself installing flooring, kind of took up the trade. And, early on, I definitely cursed that job. Like I did not want to do this. I didn't want this to be my life. But you know what? God just, he led me through that, and he taught me so much of how to serve people, right? How to kind of, you know, like, the way a house is built, the last thing you do kind of is put the flooring, in the home. And it's the dirtiest job because gravity, everything falls there. And here we are, we're cleaning it all up. And, every time I'd wake up in the morning, I'm not having a shower. I'm like putting on my dirty clothes and I'm going to work. And it was just this, like, I really did not like that because I felt like my identity was not this. However, God used that time just to really humble me and to know how to serve people well, right? Customer service, right? Things rarely go right in construction, right? And how are you going to problem solve and how are you going to maintain relationship through those hard conversations? And it was really a beautiful time because God brought me to the point, maybe, 2 or 3 years before I was finally able to retire, of just gratitude. Like I just got to the season of where I just surrendered it to him. I said, God, if this is the lot you have for me, I'm good. I'm good. My family is taken care of. We live in this beautiful block with this great house and my family's around us and we've got great friends. I'm like, what more do we want? Yes, I have a dream of ministering and doing music, but you know what? This is everything. And I think that heart of gratitude is really what allowed God to bring new season in my life. And so my foundation, the song, really parallels that journey of just going through the hard stuff. Life is a house, right? We build up our life and we weather the storms, the storms that come from the outside, and also those storms that are so internal, that the people around us don't see. And then it's just drawing that line in the sand, saying, no matter what comes my way, God, no matter what lot in life, I am to do or to have, I'm standing on you. And that's a bold faith, thing to say. But again, it's people, right? And Jesus as a person has just impacted my life like no other. And so on Christ, I stand. Yeah.
There's also the song Life Before You, which I
Yeah.
think parents are gonna love.
Yeah.
Give us the quick heart behind that one.
It's interesting because I wrote that song and I'm like, I don't remember a life before Jesus. You know what I mean? Like I was raised in a Christian home. I was the brother that stayed. I wasn't the prodigal son.
Mhm.
But you know what? It's interesting how when we come up against circumstance, we do have a life before and that life after because we still have to make a choice every day. It's like a great marriage. It's not a light switch. You have to pursue your spouse every day and give them your yes every day. And so we went through some pretty hard stuff. Like, even with my job, there was a life before Jesus moment before I said, okay, God, I'm giving this over to you and I'm grateful. Thank you. And it's me entering his space and not kind of living in mine. And so I think as we surrender these different areas of our life to him, it's like this, each part is being baptized. Each part is, being born again. And I think that's just this beautiful process. It's not a light switch. It's like just giving him our yes every day.
I want to ask about one more song,
Yeah.
and and it's the song "Generation to Generation." I love the lyric in there, thinking about the world that your kids are, growing up in. I think that's a
Yeah.
place where a lot of parents are right now. And maybe this is a thing for every generation. It just seems
Yeah.
like there's extra something, to
Yep.
be concerned about for this next generation. So tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that song.
This is one of my favorite songs because it's just this real, this very real singer-songwriter, verse, and it just tells a story. And it was inspired by a conversation I had with my grandpa.
Mm.
And my grandpa came over. This was maybe a couple of years before he passed. And he just shared a statement with me that kind of stung. And he said, I'm so grateful to not be raising kids this day and age. I don't know how I would do it, and it was just something that kind of caught me off guard, but also something in my spirit just started to rise up against that, because I'm like, you walked through the Great Depression, you walked through World War II. Like, these are heavy burdens that your generation has had to bear. And it just kind of got me thinking about the character and nature of God. And he stays the same. He's constant. Even unto death, we are held. Do you know what I mean? Like we are in, I'm kind of rambling, but like, at the end of the day, it's like God stays the same. And, the same God that walked you through your hard stuff in your generation is going to walk my kids through their stuff, with social media or AI, or whatever's coming our way. And I'm like, that is the world. We do not need to fear the world. We need to fear God, and I say that in the most loving way. It's like, he just has us, and he's got our kids, and it's going to be okay. And so he's faithful.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Jordan, thank you for talking. Thank you for giving me your yes for this interview,
Come
that we
on.
both came
Yeah.
and did this even after late nights and travels and all this stuff. I
That's
know
right.
you've got Legos to put together. Any idea what you're going to build, or is it just whatever the girls are doing?
We usually build, like, it's just houses and castles, and you
Yeah.
got to build each room, the kitchen and the bedroom and all the things. So I'm pretty sure that's what we're doing.
Has your experience with construction helped you with Lego building?
It really isn't transferable.
It's not.
It's not the
There's
same.
not like direction of studs or joists or something.
No, it
No.
just, I build something and eventually the 5-year-old just wipes it out. I'm like, all right.
Okay. Well, hey, go have fun. Thanks so much, and early happy Father's Day.
Thank you so much, Christy. Take care.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.